Imagine standing at the crossroads of truth, where ancient wisdom and modern life collide. What if I told you that the key to living a life full of peace, purpose, and true happiness has been right in front of us all along, woven into the story of one of the greatest figures in history, a figure whose message transcends religions and speaks directly to the heart of what it means to live a righteous, meaningful life. Today, we dive into the untold truth about Jesus in Islam, a story that can change your life and open the door to a deeper, more fulfilling existence. Stay with me and let's embark on this transformative journey together. Let me begin by inviting you to reflect on something that holds deep meaning to many: the figure of Jesus, a name that resonates with millions and one who represents hope, love, and sacrifice. But what if I told you there's another layer to this story, a layer that has been overlooked by many and that might just change how you see the world? In Islam, Jesus is not seen through the lens of divinity, but as one of the most revered prophets of peace. He is known as Isa ibn Maryam, a servant and messenger of Allah, sent to guide humanity toward truth, love, and the worship of the one true God. This is not a diminished view. On the contrary, Islam exalts Jesus for his wisdom, purity, and commitment to peace. He is among the greatest of the prophets, one whose words carry timeless lessons for all of us, regardless of our background or belief. Jesus in Islam is not just a historical figure, he is a role model for how we should live our lives. His message was one of compassion, kindness, and justice. Islam teaches that he was sent to the children of Israel to remind them of their moral responsibilities, to guide them back to the path of righteousness, and to help them find true happiness by following Allah's commands. Pause for a moment. Imagine a world where we too lived with that kind of purpose and compassion. A world where we, like Jesus, sought the happiness of others, lifted up those in need, and followed the path of peace. This message transcends religions and cultures. It is a call to live with integrity, to walk a path that not only brings us joy, but brings joy to those around us. In the light of this truth, Jesus in Islam isn't just a prophet. He's a beacon of hope, lighting the way to a life full of peace, purpose, and happiness. For a moment, the awe and wonder of witnessing a miracle, something that defies the natural laws of the world. Now imagine that miracle being the birth of Jesus, a birth so extraordinary it left the world in awe. In Islam, the birth of Jesus is not just a miraculous event, it is a powerful sign of Allah's might, a reminder of the infinite possibilities when we place our faith in the divine. Islam teaches that Maryam, Mary, a woman of immense piety and purity, gave birth to Jesus as a virgin. This is a miracle that reflects the incredible power of Allah, who willed this event into being. It's not just a birth, it's a symbol of hope and renewal. The miracle of Jesus' birth reminds us that in the face of challenges, in times when life seems uncertain or impossible, there is a divine purpose at work. Just as Allah made the impossible possible with Jesus' birth, so too can He guide us through life's most difficult moments. For those of us seeking a life of happiness and fulfillment, this story teaches us a profound lesson. Hope is never out of reach. No matter how dire our circumstances, we must remember that there is always the possibility of something miraculous happening in our lives. The birth of Jesus was a reminder that even when things seem impossible, divine help is always present, ready to lift us from our struggles and carry us forward. Think about it. A life lived with this kind of faith, with the belief that miracles are possible, would be a life filled with hope, joy, and true happiness. We are all capable of experiencing that miraculous shift in our lives if we open our hearts to the divine power that surrounds us. This powerful story of Jesus' birth invites us to trust in Allah's plan and believe in the extraordinary. Picture this. You're standing in awe as someone heals the sick, brings the dead back to life, and even commands nature to obey. These aren't scenes from a fantasy novel, but the miracles of Jesus, powerful acts that transcended the natural world. In Islam, Jesus performed such miracles not by his own power, but through the permission of Allah. These extraordinary events were signs of Allah's greatness and a profound reminder of his mercy. In Islam, Jesus' miracles were not just meant to demonstrate his status as a prophet, but to inspire people to trust in the divine power of Allah. He healed the blind, cured the leper, and raised the dead, acts that would leave anyone in awe. But it's important to understand that these miracles didn't come from Jesus himself. They were a direct reflection of Allah's will. Jesus was a messenger, a servant of the one true God, who acted solely under his guidance and permission. Now take a moment and reflect. When we face challenges in our own lives, whether it's health, relationships, or our personal struggles, it's easy to feel helpless. But the story of Jesus' miracles reminds us that with faith, the impossible can become possible. We don't need to perform miracles like Jesus did to feel the divine presence in our lives. What we do need is trust in the greater plan that is at work behind the scenes, guiding us, lifting us, and opening doors that we may never have imagined. The miracles of Jesus, as seen through the lens of Islam, teach us one powerful lesson. Happiness and success are not born from our own strength alone, but from our submission to a higher power. When we surrender to divine wisdom, we allow the miraculous to unfold in our lives. True happiness is found when we trust in Allah's will, just as Jesus did. Imagine waking up every day with a deep sense of purpose, knowing that your life's mission is to bring others closer to a higher truth, to guide them toward love, compassion, and the worship of the one true God. This is the essence of Jesus' prophethood in Islam. In Islam, Jesus is not merely a figure of historical significance. He is a beacon of righteousness, a messenger sent by Allah to lead humanity toward happiness, not through material gain, but through spiritual fulfillment. Jesus, known as Isa ibn Maryam in Islam, was sent to the children of Israel with a clear mission: to call people to worship Allah alone, to reject falsehood, and to live lives rooted in justice, mercy, and compassion. His teachings, as portrayed in the Quran, echo through time, a constant reminder that the path to true happiness is found not in selfish desires or worldly achievements, but in living in harmony with the divine will. When you look at Jesus' life through the lens of Islam, you see a man who was devoted to helping others. His message wasn't about power or wealth, but about love, sacrifice, and justice. He healed the sick, comforted the grieving, and stood against oppression. His life was a living testament to the profound truth that real happiness is found when we put others' needs before our own, when we strive for peace in our hearts and in our communities. Now think about how this message resonates today. In a world full of distractions and superficial pursuits, Jesus' life in Islam calls us back to what truly matters: living with a pure heart, guided by divine principles, and seeking happiness through righteous actions. His prophethood was not just about spreading a message, but about living that message each and every day. And through this, he brought light to the world and continues to offer that light to us today. Think about the defining moment of Jesus' life: the crucifixion. For many, this moment represents the ultimate sacrifice, an act of love that saved humanity. But what if I told you there's another perspective, one that might challenge what you've always known, but offer you an even deeper understanding of peace and happiness? In Islam, the crucifixion of Jesus is viewed very differently. Islam teaches that Jesus was not crucified. The Quran reveals that he was raised up by Allah, and it was someone else who was made to appear like him, crucified in his place. This isn't a denial of Jesus' significance or his role as a prophet. Rather, it emphasizes the power and protection of Allah. Jesus was spared from this fate, not because of a lack of importance, but because of Allah's mercy and plan for him. Now, I know this might seem like a departure from everything you've been taught, but the beauty of this truth is that it redefines sacrifice and love. In Christianity, the crucifixion is seen as the ultimate sacrifice for the forgiveness of sins. But in Islam, the ultimate sacrifice is seen in Jesus' devotion to God's will, his unwavering commitment to truth and righteousness, and his love for humanity. His life, as presented in Islam, is a reminder that true sacrifice isn't about suffering for suffering's sake, but about living for a higher purpose and embracing the will of Allah with a heart full of faith. So what does this mean for us today? It means that true happiness isn't found in suffering or in holding on to pain, but in trusting the divine plan, in embracing Allah's mercy, and in living a life aligned with righteousness and peace. Jesus' story in Islam invites us to live with hope, knowing that we are always protected by a greater force, the force of divine love and wisdom. Imagine a time when the world feels lost, where injustice runs rampant and peace seems out of reach. Now, picture a figure of hope returning, bringing with him a promise of justice, peace, and true happiness. This is the vision Islam gives us of the second coming of Jesus. In Islam, Jesus' return is not a mere prophecy. It is a future event that brings with it the ultimate restoration of justice. When he returns, he will defeat the Dajjal, the Islamic equivalent of the Antichrist, and usher in an era of peace and righteousness. Jesus will restore balance to the world, showing us how to live in harmony with one another and with the divine will. His return will not be as a figure of sacrifice, but as a leader of justice and truth, guiding humanity to a better way of life. Now consider the significance of this in our lives today. In a world filled with uncertainty, fear, and division, the idea that justice will prevail and peace will be restored is an incredibly powerful source of hope. The second coming of Jesus in Islam isn't just a story about the future. It's a reminder that no matter how dark the world may seem, there is always a path to righteousness and peace. This promise invites us to live with hope in our hearts, to stand firm in our faith, and to never give up on the possibility of a better world. The return of Jesus in Islam teaches us that true happiness doesn't come from the fleeting joys of this world, but from the unwavering belief that justice and peace are part of the divine plan. By aligning ourselves with these principles, we can live lives full of purpose, guided by hope, and shaped by a deep understanding that peace is always within reach, no matter how chaotic the world may seem. Let's take a moment to pause and reflect on something extraordinary: the way Jesus is presented in the Quran. For many, Jesus is primarily known through the Gospels, but in Islam, the Quran offers a powerful, profound understanding of his character, his mission, and his special relationship with Allah. In Islam, Jesus is regarded as a word of God, a creation that reflects the divine will in a unique and powerful way. He is described as a spirit from God, one whose very essence is intertwined with divine purpose. This understanding places Jesus in a position of great honor, not as a figure of worship, but as an exalted prophet sent to guide humanity. Through the Quran, we learn that Jesus wasn't just a messenger. He was a vessel of peace, bringing people closer to the truth of Allah. But what does this mean for us? It's easy to see Jesus as a figure distant from our lives, but the teachings in the Quran remind us that his mission, to spread compassion, mercy, and worship of the one God, is a mission that resonates with our deepest desires for happiness and fulfillment. Jesus' life in the Quran teaches us that the path to true peace and happiness is through devotion to Allah, living with a heart full of compassion and humility, and dedicating ourselves to the well-being of others. In a world that constantly pulls us in different directions, the message of Jesus in Islam is a call to return to what truly matters, living in harmony with the divine, cultivating a heart that seeks peace, and sharing that peace with the world. Jesus' words in the Quran serve as a beacon of hope, reminding us that true happiness comes from aligning our lives with the wisdom and peace that come from the one true God. Take a moment to consider the profound simplicity of the concept of God in Islam, a concept that, once understood, can bring clarity and peace to every aspect of our lives. In Islam, there is no ambiguity, no complex layers to sift through. Allah is one, the singular, absolute, and indivisible God who created everything and sustains everything. This is the core of Islamic belief, known as Tawheed, and it holds the key to understanding not only Islam, but the path to a truly happy life. The concept of Tawheed, the absolute oneness of Allah, is not just a theological principle, it is a guiding force in every Muslim's life. It means that there is no room for idols, no room for dividing God into parts, no room for associating anything with his divine essence. It is a reminder that everything we seek, every ounce of happiness we desire, is ultimately derived from this oneness. Allah is not distant or divided. He is close, ever-present, and fully in control of every moment of our lives. Now think about how this can change how you live. In a world that often feels fragmented and overwhelming, The idea that there is one God who is in charge of everything offers a sense of peace and clarity. When we acknowledge Allah's oneness, we surrender the burden of trying to control everything ourselves. We realize that true happiness comes from aligning our lives with the one force that governs the universe, the one who created us, knows us, and is always by our side. In a society full of distractions and false ideals, the concept of Allah's oneness is a grounding force. It directs our focus away from the fleeting and toward the eternal, away from confusion and toward peace. True fulfillment and happiness come from remembering that there is no greater truth than the oneness of God, and living in harmony with that understanding. Pause for a moment and think about the values that truly define a meaningful and happy life. What traits do we admire most in the people we look up to? For many, it's compassion, generosity, and kindness. These qualities are central to the life of Jesus in Islam. In the Quran, Jesus is portrayed not only as a prophet, but as a model of mercy, a guide who teaches us that the road to true happiness is paved with compassion and service to others. In Islam, Jesus' life is a shining example of how we should treat one another. He is described as a person who healed the sick, comforted the afflicted, and always reached out to the poor and marginalized. His acts of kindness weren't just about the miracles he performed, but about the way he interacted with those around him. His message is clear. Happiness is not found in selfishness or isolation, but in reaching out to others, in serving others with a pure heart, and in sharing what we have. Jesus in Islam teaches us that our personal fulfillment is tied to how much we give to the world around us. It's easy to think that happiness comes from accumulating wealth, possessions, or status. But Islam teaches us through Jesus' example that true joy comes from selflessness, from caring for others, and from sharing our blessings, whether they are material or spiritual. In a world that often pushes us to focus on me, Jesus' message is a call to focus on we. Reflect on this for a moment. What would your life look like if you lived every day with the goal of helping others, of embodying the compassion of Jesus? How much more peace and happiness would fill your heart if you took that first step towards kindness and charity? The message of Jesus in Islam is clear. Our joy and peace come not from what we keep, but from what we give. The life of Jesus in Islam offers us profound lessons about living a life filled with purpose, peace, and happiness. His message transcends time and religion, calling us to embrace compassion, trust in the divine plan, and seek true fulfillment through kindness, faith, and service to others. By understanding Jesus in this light, we are reminded that happiness comes not from material success, but from aligning our lives with divine guidance and living with a heart full of mercy and peace. Thank you for your time and attention. May your journey be filled with wisdom, joy, and the peace that comes from understanding and faith. Good luck on your path to a truly fulfilling life.